Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome to another edition of FPP Live. I'm here. I'm queer, and I guess I'm used to it. I mean, I've always been this way, so I don't know when I wasn't used to it. Um, I'm Julie Novak, and tonight we are going to be hanging out with my friend Ryan Cassata, who'll be joining us in just for tonight's FPP Live right here on Instagram. Um, for those of you who don't know,
Hello.
oh, hey,
Did you request me?
oh, it says Ryan Cassata. Oh, it was the wrong Ryan Cassata. I thought
Yeah,
it.
I'm not Ryan. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
that's okay. Why don't you? I'm gonna let
Sorry
you
about.
go. That's okay, and I'm gonna invite Ryan.
Yeah,
Okay, can you hang
yeah,
up? All right,
yeah.
thank you. All right, cool. Sorry about that. I was fooled. I got fooled by the Ryan Cassata street team who showed up. Hey, out there, the Ryan Cassata street team. Glad you're here with us. And now it is
Hello.
the one and only Ryan Cassata. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. You know what just happened? It's so funny is that people were joining and I saw Ryan Cassata and I invited, but it turned out to be the Ryan Cassata street team.
Oh,
And the
nice.
person was like, "Hey, did you mean to invite me?" And I was like, "Oh."
Huh.
And so we had that little blip. Anyway, welcome to FPP Live, Ryan Casada. I was just letting folks know who haven't ever tuned in before what we're all about.
Hmm.
So yes, welcome to FPP Live. I'm Julie Novak. I'm a media producer and facilitator with the Future Perfect Project, and we are a queer-led organization who believe that the amplification of young LGBTQIA plus youth voices is a declaration for a better future for us all. And we help amplify those voices by providing free arts workshops all over the world via Zoom right now, and hopefully more in person as things shift back to normal. But we offer writing, music, visual art, theater, animation. I mean, we run the gamut, and to share stories of LGBTQIA plus youth. And tonight, our special guest is Ryan Casada. And Ryan, if you don't know, if you're not on the street team and you don't know who Ryan is, Ryan is an award-winning singer, songwriter, actor, performer, published writer, LGBTQIA plus activist, and a motivational speaker. And he's been featured on Grammy.com, Rolling Stone, Billboard, New York Times, BuzzFeed, and has been working really hard to advance his career since, as both an artist and an activist since the age of 13, after joining the Safe Schools team, which we'll learn a little bit more about. And he's most proud of being a trans advocate and public speaker in and around his hometown of Long Island, New York. Welcome, Ryan Casada.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's so great to have you here. Been listening to your music, love it. I love getting to talk to a person whose message and identity, like I identify with so strongly, and that's what's so great about doing these interviews is a young person watching can be like, oh, I see that. I know I can be it. And
Definitely.
you're one of the icons that we're really happy to talk to. So, can you tell folks a little bit about, I was just talking about the Future Perfect Project and how we kind of we're all autobiographical queer artists, and we use what we know to help amplify queer voices. Tell us a little bit about your background from the age of 13 and becoming an activist up into kind of how you're doing that activism now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I started really young and I started because I was getting bullied in school. So I got sent to the LGBT center, which happened to be in my hometown. So I was really lucky for that and I'm super grateful for it now as an adult. And yeah, going to that center, I joined the Safe Schools team, and then I started speaking all around, and not just like in my hometown and on Long Island, but I was doing the whole tri-state area and getting flown out to speak in different states by the time I was like 17. And it's just gone from there, speaking at schools and colleges, high schools, middle schools, universities, conventions, LGBTQ conferences, things like that. So I've just been doing that since I was 13.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So, oh, go ahead.
oh yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, what it looks like now, I mean, because of COVID, things kind of like, got shut down. So I was like going to be planning to, I was doing this whole tour where I was going to like LGBT centers and schools and like safe places across the whole country. But that got shut down because of COVID. So hopefully when things open up again, we'll be able to bring that back. But someone did ask in the comments if I'm going on tour again, and I will be doing like a few dates here and there, starting at the end of, or starting in the beginning of September. So you could find everything at ryancassata.com/tour.
Excellent. That's great news. That's great news. So tell me, what was your first exposure to the LGBTQ community? What was like the first thing that you learned about queerness?
First thing, I'm not really sure. I mean, I just kind of like, I knew I was queer when I was 12, and like at that point, I mean, my parents like weren't really letting me on the internet all that much, so that like wasn't a thing, and it was more just about like what you heard in school. But I've kind of just like always known who I am from a young age, and I mean, when I came out as trans, there was like no resources, and like
Mm,
not many people were out. So but when I came out, like, and I was able to like go on YouTube and look at things, I found a few trans musicians that helped really shape my path, including Lucas from the Clicks, Joe Stevens of Coyote Grace, Joshua Clip, Storm Miguel Flores. Those people really helped show me that be trans and also still be successful as a musician at the same time.
yeah, yeah. Um, in that respect about, being a musician, um, when did you kind of, as you were claiming your queerness, you were finding your voice. Did you know you were a musician before you kind of came out, or before you claimed your full queerness? And how did um, singer songwriting help with that process? Because it sounds like you were so alone when you first came out, which sucks because wasn't any resource. So we know that community helped you in that way. And how did your art help you?
Yeah, I started playing music when I was 6. So at that point, like, I didn't know I was queer yet, because I didn't have sexual attraction to anything because I was 6. But so music came first for sure for me. I was very interested, and I started writing songs when I was 12, and I was mostly writing about like things I read in books, so it wasn't like that personal yet. And then like how did those two intersect? Like music has helped me process like everything that I've been through in my life, in both songs that I've released and songs that I haven't ever released and maybe won't ever. But like music has been a positive, healthy outlet, and it's been a way that I have expressed myself since I was very young, since as early as I can remember, really. So music has always been like my number one, and I think like as far as like being queer, like, my there's some songs that I have that are about being queer, but like most of my songs are just about being human and the experiences that I'm having in my life, whether that's like relationships or friends passing away or looking at the stars or traveling and touring. So it's like not everything I do is related to being queer, and not everything I write about is either, but obviously there is like Daughter and Queer Love Outlaw and songs like that. So
Yeah, yeah. The one I was just listening to was Gender Binary. Fuck You, which is a great song, and it leads me
Thank
into
you.
wanting to, you know, I think when we're queer, it's like it's like so, kind of like the personal becomes political. So it's like not everything we're singing about is queer, but because we're queer, like there's always that kind of lens. And so, in terms of your lens, like how do you identify on the LGBTQIA plus spectrum, and what does queerness mean to you?
Sure, I definitely identify as queer. I identify as FTM, which means female to male. I identify as a trans person. I identify as a person having a trans experience. And I identify as post gender as well, moving beyond like these confines of gender stereotypes and what is expected of us. So, I mean, just in like, I've been out for a really long time now, and I've watched the trans community shift and really transcend. And for me, like, I just realized now, like, I don't need to fit into any box. Like, I've been pressured
Mm.
my whole transition to go on testosterone, and I never did. And like, I just realized, like, I don't need to fit into any box, and neither does anyone else. Like, a trans person is trans when they like if they realize they're trans. Like, there's people that are trans that will never come out, and those people are just as trans as me, regardless of how they dress, how they look, how they identify, what pronouns they're using, or whatever, you know. Like, that doesn't erase their experience because they're not out or they don't want to transition or something. Like, that's fine, you know, and they're just as much as trans as me. And I think like we all just need to realize like we're all people just having human experiences. And I think to be able to feel this trans experience is a very beautiful thing. And you know, it comes with a level of being self-aware. Like, trans people are very self-aware. We are really looking inward and seeing like, oh, there's this thing, you know. And that's a very beautiful thing that should be celebrated.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I think that you're making me think about. I just saw this pin that I really like that said "Masculinity is what you make it," and I think that the same thing could go for femininity. And a lot of our participants, we're actually putting a book together of a lot of the different writings from different workshops we've done. We've
Mm-hmm.
done a few on gender, and one of our participants talked about, you know, if I want to wear makeup and a dress and say that's manly, who are you to stop me? Like this whole
Mm-hmm.
idea, and I know you have this whole way that you do gender your own way. Like, can you talk a little bit about rejecting the binary and what masculinity might mean to you, or femininity, and how those work? I'm not sure if that's the great way to
Yeah.
phrase it, but
I mean, yeah, I mean, femininity and masculinity are a lot based from stereotypes, and people have different ideas of that. Like, each individual has different ideas of what it means to be feminine and what it means to be masculine and what is considered and what's not for them, you know. And some people do force that on other people. And, you know, we're humans. We all have like preferences over one thing or another. That's like a pretty human experience, but we can't like
yeah.
force those. On other people. We can't force those preferences on other people. Like, we have to live and let live, you know? And like, I think, you know, we have to move beyond like those stereotypes of what is feminine, what is masculine, and just be. Like that's how I am. Like, I'm just like, I just want to be. I just want to exist. And like, I don't want to have to think about like, oh, should I wear this? Do I look too much like this? Or like, you know, like, I don't want to have to think about that stuff. And for the most part, I don't anymore, unless there's like a safety risk or a public bathroom or
Yeah.
something like that. But aside from that, like, you know, I really love being visible as a trans person. And um I love to identify as trans. Like, I am proud to be trans. Like I said, I think it's magical in a way, and it's a
Yeah.
level of self-awareness. And it's interesting because I will bring up like the original caption for that was promoting this. There was like a description of what the photograph was.
Oh, the alt text. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So the alt text labeled me as just white man, and I was like, that like just isn't my identity. Like I don't really identify as a man. Like, am I a man? Like, yeah, sure, but that's like not my main identity. Like, as I identify as a trans man, like over a man, and I don't I love to say that I'm trans, and I love to say like that I am having a trans experience because it's my truth, and it's like it's who I've been, and I take pride in being visible because it does help other people uh that they could be themselves too. So um
Yeah.
but some people don't like that. Some trans people just want to be a man. They don't want to be trans man. They just want to be a man. So it's different for like each individual person really. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a really good point. And for me, when I think about your transness, I think about reclamation. Like there's a lot of reclaiming words and identities. Like going back to the song "Daughter," um, I didn't change who I am. I've always been a man. It changed your world, but Dad, I'll always stay your little girl. Like that. There's these two identities that normally are completely on separate ends of a spectrum, but they can coexist. And I just think
Mhm.
that's what is the future of gender almost. I don't want to
Yeah.
stake my
We
claim, but
don't
like,
have to box up.
yeah. And that's what I'm learning all the time from the young people that take our workshops. If you're just
Mhm.
joining us, folks, this is FPP Live. We're here with Ryan Cassata. We're talking about queerness and music and art and all the ways we can amplify our queer voices. So we believe that LGBTQIA plus youth are living in a future that hasn't yet arrived. They're kind of creating the future. How do you think you were living in the future as a young person?
Um yeah, it's an interesting question. I think like when I came out I wasn't very aware of like the violence and stuff against trans people because it wasn't really in the media at all um in the before 2010, so I was just like I just came out and I was like I'm me, I'm myself, like, and I'm trans, and call me he him and call me Ryan. So I was just like unapologetic about it, and so maybe that's like how, but I mean really I was just like living my truth in that moment really. And um I think like we are we are moving beyond like this idea that there was only trans men and trans women, right? Like that was a very that's like a old idea of the trans community, and now we're seeing like no, there's like all these other identities and there's all these other things that exist. So we are constantly, moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, really beautiful answer. I mean, I think that just the fact that you were living in your truth, like, reminds me of Celeste puts their experience at like they knew that they were living in the future because they knew that what people thinking that their queerness should be illegal or a mental illness, which wasn't true. And and it turned out, having that notion years and years later, things are still effed up in many ways, but things have also changed in a lot of ways um, around visibility that have made you be able to, come out and stake your claim in a way that I think that you knew it was possible versus like for myself in my generation, I'm 48, like not quite knowing if it was possible because there was no
Mm.
visibility and I never saw myself. There was no reflection. So you're really helping just forge this path ahead for young people. It's just really amazing. Um, so why do you think art is a powerful tool in social justice movements? Like, how have you seen um, your work inspire others? How has it changed you?
Yeah, I mean, just even with my song Daughter, like I hear from families who are just like, I've tried to talk to my dad for years. I've tried to get him to accept me, and then as soon as he heard your song, he started calling me by my name, right? And
Oh,
it's like
that's
things
so
like
great.
that. It's things like that that I just see like, okay, art somehow is able to communicate a very powerful message because people just like, I don't know, I guess we respond to art, and we're able with art we're able to look at things in a different way and maybe from a different perspective through a different lens. And I think that's why art is just like it's so powerful. And I've seen it with my music, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, awesome. That's such a great story. That like even knowing too, like if we have an off day where we have an open workshop and only one or two people come, it's like if we can reach one or two people and make and like set something in them that gives them more hope or ignites their passion, it's like we've done
Mm.
our work. So to hear a story like that is really, really cool. Um, so you, my friend, are sober. You're a sober individual. You're a sober artist. I know for me, when I was growing up, I I always like so many people. I was always really naive about it. I never thought any artists did drugs or had issues with any kind of substance because I always thought if you're able to express yourself that beautifully, there's a freedom there. And I turned out I was wrong. A lot of my friends make fun of me because they were like, "You didn't know that so and so, you didn't know Neil Young like shot up or whatever." But anyway, I'm digressing. So for you, and this is why I bring this up. I want young people to know that you can be purely yourself and tap into that beautiful energy and creativity. And that being said, how has sobriety helped your creative process?
Yeah, I would say since I've been sober, like not only has my voice improved, like my vocals, but just writing. I've written more songs sober now than I did not sober. So, um, like I've been sober 7 years now. So, like, I don't think that I don't think doing drugs or alcohol would help me in any way, besides to be a distraction. Like,
Mm.
so I don't need any of that. Like, and I don't think that it even like there is that common misconception of like, oh, if I do these drugs or drink, I'll write amazingly, and it's like that's not even like actually true. That's like, it's just like a rumor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm on that. I'm sober as well, and
Awesome.
I'm on that vibe. Um, so queer youth watching, is there anything, if you wanted to say anything to queer youth watching, those who are either out and proud with support or are still questioning or feeling isolated, like what's something that you would want to say?
Yeah, I would say, there's no rush to figure yourself out. Allow yourself to experiment and allow yourself to evolve, and who you are today might not be who you are tomorrow or the next day or a month from now. Like we all change over time, and that's totally a human experience for everyone. So just be yourself today and to the best of your ability, really.
Yeah, that's always like just the strongest advice. And it looking back, I know that I sacrificed myself to so I wouldn't get bullied, so I wouldn't get attention drawn to me. And I always think, you know, if I had been able to just stay true to myself, even if it would have been harder in the moment, I think that it would have just kept me on a path of belonging to myself, like more than ever. And so
Hmm.
I just think that's a good, I mean, sometimes it's easier said than done, especially as a young person, but it's just a great, solid piece of advice that a lot of artists talk about. And artists like yourself who are young adults or older adults who are living proof that like staying true to yourself has this payoff. And of course, folks out there, if you are struggling in any way with your identity, if you don't feel safe, if you feel sad, if you feel scared, you can always check out
Mm.
the Trevor Project. They
Yeah,
have a
great
hotline. They have,
resource.
yeah, Trevor Chat, Trevor Text. You can go to the trevorproject.org for any help you need. And I'm so happy to hear, Ryan, that you have a family that really has your back. Like,
Definitely. Yeah.
that's just so amazing. Like, in your getting top surgery when you were 18 and having like your family there for you is just a
Mhm.
beautiful, beautiful thing, and has helped you become this beautiful person who can then do things that help inspire other young trans folks or queer folks. Um, so I guess the last thing I'll ask you is what is your idea of a perfect future? We ask this of our young people a lot, um, and I just wonder if you have any ideas.
Yeah, I think the perfect future is a future where violence doesn't exist, whether that's emotional, mental, physical, verbal. I think we're all striving for, or we all should be striving for a non-violent world.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'll take a moment to say there's a question that came in from Trace Ellis 321. Is there an organization for trans artists or musicians that you might know of?
For artists, no, I'm not sure about that.
Okay. Let's
Yeah.
see. Um, a comment here, forever LGBT Insta. I wish now that I would have come out back in high school, but I was so
Uh,
worried. I was so worried by being from the Midwest. I hear you. I also grew up in the Midwest.
yeah.
Um, so this has been awesome. You're amazing. I'm so happy to hear you're going to be touring again. We chatted about this loosely. Do you want, can you play a song, or is that not in the cards tonight?
Oh,
Which is totally.
yeah, I should have set up all my stuff before so it wouldn't,
Oh,
but
okay.
it would take
Yeah,
me,
when
yeah.
Ryan and I were chatting, um, we were talking about whether or not this was an interview or a performance. And I said it's an interview, but if you feel so moved, of course you can perform.
I'll have to come
Unfortunately,
back to do a song.
yeah, we'll definitely do that later.
Cool.
So shout out to folks where they can find more about you and your tour and everything before we go.
Sure, you can find everything at ryancassata.com, and you could also find um, out on my social media as well. And I have a new song coming out on August 13th called
Awesome.
Loner
With
Boy. And
Loner
that
Boy.
features another trans artist, so that'll be cool.
Awesome. I want to thank you, Ryan, and I want to let all the young people know that you can check out more of what we do at thefutureperfectproject.com. Follow us on Insta at The Future Perfect Project. Check out what we do. All of our workshops are free for LGBTQ youth 12 to 19. We're doing all kinds of really cool stuff, and hopefully we'll get to connect with you soon. Ryan, I hope you have a great night, and thank you so much
Awesome.
again for joining us.
Of
All right.
course. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you. Take care.
everyone.
Bye.